أحمده وأصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين يا رب. Before I begin, I want to give an introduction to this book that I'll be reading from, because as I read from this book, people will think that I'm reading conspiracy theories. I'm not reading from conspiracy theories. This is a professor from Rutgers University. He has a book called Great Political Theories. I'll be reading from there, because when you read the things that some of these philosophers say, you can only wonder how evil and how crooked and how cruel human thinking can get. There is a philosopher named Spencer, who is the prophet of a philosophy called social Darwinism. Anybody here heard of social Darwinism before? Yes? Good. We're going to actually read his own words today. And you may say, like, how can people like this exist? But this is what Spencer says in his own writings, in his own words. It's not conspiracy, not exaggerations. It's the man himself, and then we will talk about how his ideas have manifested in modern times. Meaning, this is writing of the early 19th century. We'll see how these writings are manifesting themselves even today. So this guy, Spencer, he writes, "For if the unworthy are helped to increase, by shielding them from that mortality which their unworthiness would naturally entail, the effect is to produce generation after generation a greater unworthiness. From diminished use of self-conserving faculties already deficient, there must be result in posterity still smaller amounts of self-conserving faculties. The general law which we traced above in its bodily applications may be traced here in its mental applications. Removal of certain difficulties and dangers which have been met by intelligence and activity is followed by a decreased ability to meet difficulties and dangers." What is he saying? For if the unworthy are helped, meaning who? The weak of society. Why should we help them? If the weak people are weak, let them be weak and let them die out. He's saying that in the animal world, what happens? If somebody's weak, another animal will come and eat it. Why not let that be in the human world? Why should we help the poor? There's no need to help the poor. In fact, there's a book called The Protestant Ethics, which is a famous book written about 200 years ago, which compared Europe with America. And one of the main themes of this is that the reason America is prosperous because in a lot of American pragmatic thinking is if you're poor, it's because you deserve it. And if you're rich and you're well-to-do, it's because God favors you. It's because what? God favors you. This is the Protestant ethics that says this, that if God likes you, He will shower favors upon you. If God doesn't like you, He will not shower His favors upon you. And why would you be so mentally deranged as to spend your energies helping the poor people? Those people that are weak, just as what happens in the animal world, the weak die out, let the weak die out. So on the one hand, you have a political elite who is bought into this idea, who's bought into the idea that why should we spend time helping the weak of society. You know, one of the very famous philanthropists, you know what a philanthropist is? Somebody who likes to give money, who believed in the ideas of Spencer, was Carnegie. Anybody heard of the name? Where did he spend his money? Spent a lot of money. He's known for his spending of money, but for what? For museums. To make the people that are the best of the best, give them a better culture, give them a higher society, give them higher culture, make museums, make art, buy art and invest in art and culture and music to make the people that are already of a certain stature within society to go higher. But don't spend your time with the poor. The point is, why not let the miserable out of their misery? Why not let the miserable what? Out of their misery. They have a life of suffering. Why continue their suffer? It is with this type of mentality that you can justify all sorts of things. When we're talking about politics in the Quran, I'm not talking about the structure of the Islamic State. I'm talking about human behavior. How human beings in the elite and the relationship of the elite with the followers, how that functions, how certain groups, how certain people within the elite think. What are the philosophies that are very attractive to them? So Spencer came with this idea that those that are going to survive, those that are going to thrive, they're good, and those that are weak, cut them off. Just like a surgery. If you have a cancer and there's some disease in the feet and you need surgery, cut the feet is better than letting the cancer spread. If they're miserable people, cut them off. If they die from starvation, let them die from starvation. It's better for them. At least they won't have to have misery generation after generation. Now what I'm saying may sound like, oh, is this really real? Let's see how real this is. One of the first manifestations of this in this century, in the last century, the 19th century, 19th, 20th century, before World War I, and actually World War I until World War II, was a field called eugenics. Anybody ever study eugenics? It was a field in which people wanted to, like Hitler, people like Hitler and others like him, there was laws passed in the United States that if you're a criminal, you cannot have children. You know that? Laws passed in different countries that if you're a criminal, you can't have children because your progeny will be as miserable as you are, and we can't have that. We need a progeny of successful people. Hitler wanted to create like a Superman race. He wanted his people only to have kids from the best of his people to produce like a superhuman race. And let the people that are having misery, let them die out. In fact, we'll remove them from their misery. It's better, as far as Spencer saw it, it's better to remove their misery and let the collective be healthy. And so he also writes, there's so much bakwas here that it's, anyway. We should think it a very foolishly sort of benevolence. It's, benevolence, to take care of someone. It's a very foolish sort of benevolence which led a surgeon to let his patient's disease progress to a fatal issue, rather than inflict pain by an operation. Similarly, we must call those philanthropists who spend their money for the poor, who prevent the misery from ending, would entail greater misery upon future generations.